Hi, guys, and welcome to the very first podcast episode. I am your host with the most. My name is Danny Armour King Monahan, and you are actually listening to the Amazing Plastic Podcast, or otherwise known as AP Podcast. In today's episode, well, the very first episode, we're going to be talking about a whole variety of subjects, but the first subject that we're going to kick off this podcast with, if you will, is classic model kits versus new model kits. Followed up with eBay versus your local stores, and then finally I'm going to end the podcast with a Who Am I? And first things first, I would just like to thank our sponsors over at Amazing Plastic. I'd like to thank Tenor Controls, Vallejo or Vallejo, however you want to pronounce it, Acrylicos Paints, the Fiber Optic Store, Aztec Dummy Paint and Masks, Awada Matea, PM Hobby Crafts, among many others. And now let's get back to the actual show. Now, first subject, classic model kits versus new tooled model kits. I'm a big fan of both. It doesn't matter what kind of kit it is, as long as it is the same kit in essence. I have two kits of the same P-51 Mustang. I have an older kit and I have the newer kit. I like the newer kits because you can guarantee to tell that the decals, or the decals, however you wish to call them, are going to be crisp, they're going to be clean, they're not going to be yellowed, they're not going to be faded, they're not going to be brittle. As well with the older kits, you get that nostalgic feeling knowing that that kit itself was actually made, I've had model kits that were made before I was even born, and the majority of them just sat on a shelf. I never touched them. I waited for a retooling or a brand new version of the kit to come out, and I got that instead. Now, nostalgically, yes, you can do lots of things with your older kits. Keep them, trade them, etc., etc. But I personally believe that both sort of kits have their own merits, if you will. For example, the newer kit, it may have fitting issues. For example, a kit that comes to mind is the AMT's Reliant model kit. The original kit didn't go together no matter what you did, and yet this newer kit that I've got, it's tending to go together a lot easier than the older kit. Again, a lot of people keep comparing the older kits to the newer kits. For example, the Colonial Viper that comes to mind, the Cylon Raider, but they haven't released a Battlestar base yet. I know that there is an older Battlestar base model kit out there. They just haven't released a new one. Now, again, they've all got their own merits. I personally believe, now this is my personal taste, not just Amazing Plastic or anyone in particular, but mine, aka Danny Armour King. This is my personal take on old versus new. I believe that both kits have their merits. Both are good, both are bad. For example, a newer kit tends to devalue the older kit. So a lot of people who have the older kits tend to hate it when companies like Revell or AMT or Monogram or Earl or whoever, or even Airfix, take one of their older kits that sells like hotcakes. Even Tamiya does this. Tamiya used to do a whole bunch of radio control kits. They've started to phase out the RC section, but they still use the original molds, which means you've got the tabs where it says break off here if you have the gearing and blah 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 blah. And it does get annoying because it adds a few extra steps to building your kits, but I like it simply because you have another option. That's the way I see it. Now, comparing the older kits to the newer, again, from the old kit side of the story, the newer kits, well, they're like, well, you've lowered my price, I can pick you up cheaper, and then the newer kits are like, yes, but I'm cheaper because that means you can then be put away or used for trading fodder, or just if you're that nostalgic. I know some people, my uncle being one of them, God rest his soul, he would always buy two of the same kit. Not because he would bugger it up or anything, but simply because he would take one kit, build it, and another kit he'd keep in a cupboard, wherever for his collection. So that when he'd take his kits to shows, he could literally take the actual kit he's finished and put it on the other kit's box, so that you can get a rough estimate of what the kit originally looked like compared to what he's done to it. And of course, if something breaks along the way during the show, he can always bust open the other sprue, snip off a bit, and put it on, and glue it, paint it, glue it, and put it on. But again, that's truthfully the merits of older kits versus new. Also, you got to remember, some of the older kits, they're not made anymore. So when a newer version from a different company, for example, comes out, that's when you've got to judge it up. And when that comes to mind, I think of Dragon models versus Tamiya versus Taliari versus, even certain Airfix kits on some levels. I would consider them to be not in value-wise, but they are up there. Everybody knows in England, Airfix was at one point the Family Dollar brand, if you will, or dollar store brand model kit, where the details was literally nowhere, and you had to scratch build the majority of the details for yourself, especially cockpits. First thing that comes to mind is the Mark II Spitfire kit that they came out with. I remember buying that kit when I was about 12, and got completely disheartened when I found out the pilot didn't even have arms. All he had was just a torso, a neck, and a head. So I started scratch building, and that's where I learnt my scratch building skills. But when it comes down to new versus old, the way I see it, it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got the kit, as long as you're enjoying building the kit, and as long as you enjoy displaying the kit. Now, again, comparing, and that's another thing that really twerks me, is the paraphernalia that they cram into the box. 12 different types of booklets we also do paints and glues and this and that. Most veteran model kit builders already have their glues or their paints or whatever. You don't have to do that. If anything, you put in a small little pamphlet that says, for more information, please go to www.whatever.com, and or check us out at your local hobby store, things of that nature. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to happen quite a lot, and it does depress me. Is that a lot of model kit companies, and I'm looking at you, Tamiya, because you do this a lot, so do you, Dragon, is, depending on the kit you get, of course, you open up the box, and all you're greeted with is pamphlets, paraphernalia, and even worse if you order your kit from a local hobby store, or a eBay store, because they cram even more of their own paraphernalia in the box. It gets to the point where there's like 1,000 trees cut down for all these pamphlets, and you just throw them in the bin, or you use them to scratch build some seatbelts, or you end up using it in the kit, not to learn from the kit, if that makes sense. But that's my take on that. Now, on to another subject. Again, guys, if you want to be in on this podcast, please let me know over at Amazing Plastics Google Plus page. And under the discussions tab, you will see a post I put there about who's interested in being in the podcast. Please just leave your name. And next time I get ready to set up the recording, I'll invite you to a Google Plus Hangout, and we can start the podcast from there. But then the next subject, eBay versus your local stores. Well, what can I say? I unfortunately live out in the boonies. Quite literally. I may be British, but I live in the great state of Utah. And I live in southeast Utah, where there's more desert and mountains than there are people. And unfortunately, that also translates to local businesses not ever stocking modeling supplies. My last modeling hobby supply that was near me went belly up almost 8-9 years ago. And I've had to get my hobby supplies from places like Michael's up in Salt Lake and Provo, and the cost of petrol, or gasoline as you Yanks call it, is just getting so high that I can't afford it anymore. So I have to bite the bullet and type in eBay.com and type in the for example Vallejo paints, and there's their sets, and they're like, oh my god, and I got to wait X amount of days for shipping, and and all that fun stuff. And I can understand that eBay can be a very good thing. For example, one of our members, Jack, Scratching Jack, he hunts on eBay like a shark does in water. He finds deals, he sniffs them out, he just attacks them like a shark, gets the deals he wants, and he's happy. And he also sells products on eBay. So I suggest you hit Jack up and see what he's got for sale. But little plug there for you, Jack. But most importantly, I have a hard time buying model kits on eBay. I really do. Same as Amazon, same as Michaels.com, Walmart.com. It doesn't matter what .com it is. Even Round 2, I have a hard time ordering stuff from Round 2's website. I just have a very hard time ordering any model kit or product online. Not because I think they're gonna gyp me or anything. No, far from it. Simply because I'm the type of modeler that likes to get their hands actually on the kit, that reads all the information on the sides and looks at the condition of the box, and if the box has got dings and scratches and dents in it, that means the kit's been bashed around a bit and there may be broken parts. Things of that nature. I also know that the kit, when I'm buying it, I'm supporting my local business. And again, I'm not saying don't get kits on eBay. I'm not saying don't do anything like that on eBay. Far, far, far from it. If I was you, I would go ahead and do it. And, if they have the kit that you want, and it's $5-6 cheaper than your local store, you got to pay attention to the shipping. See, that's another thing that the eBay model kit sellers like to gouge us on, us modelers, is it'll be $8 for the model, but $20 for shipping. Shouldn't that be $20 for the model and $8 for the shipping? Because you're just going to throw it in a flat rate shipping box. It's going to cost you maybe $4. You just want to get that extra $4 from us. When we, again, you got to weigh up the pros and cons. Time of it being shipped to you, the shipping costs itself, the reputation of the seller, and that's another thing about eBay. I can understand that the reputation system is there to help people not be scammed, but in theory, it in itself is a scam. And again, I'm the type of modeler that when I go to my local hobby store, I like to interact with the store owner. I like to interact with other hobbyists there. First thing that comes to mind is Games Workshop. I, like Richard Cleveland, used to work for Games Workshop, and I remember when I used to work on the floor, and even people like my roommate and whatnot, they'd come up and it'd be like, and my floor manager would tell me to ignore my friends, ignore my girlfriend even at one point, ignore my roommate at one point, and go for that one person who's just looking at the blister packs. It's not even, you can usually judge by yourself if a person's going to purchase an item or not. And you could clearly see he wasn't going to purchase anything. He was waiting around for, I believe it was his grandkid or something like that. And my boss told me, go bug him. Go up and say, hello, my name's Danny, how may I help you? Are you looking for something in particular? And I did that. And my friend standing at the counter, looking at me like, dude, what the fudge? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Kenny, I've got to deal with this customer first. I'll get to you as soon as I can. By the time that customer that I was looking at decided to leave with his grandson, my roommate had left, bought his item and left. My girlfriend had bought the item, got upset at me and left. And when I got home, all I got was in my left ear was my roommate and my right ear was my girlfriend. And it got to the point where that sort of stress, I didn't want to follow me from home to work, from work to home. So but again, as I said, I'm a very honest person. I like to. It's weird. I mean, when you go to a hardware store, you look at the lumber. You don't just buy the lumber online and then go down to your local hardware store and pick it up. They could give you the most bentest piece of wood, and you're supposed to make a fence post out of that. No, that ain't gonna work. Again, I like to physically, in many ways, manhandle the paints. I like to pick which pot I like, because some pots may look like the paint's drying, some pots may look like the paint's too wet or the pigment's pulled away. On an eBay store, they don't care. They've got racks of the same paint. They just grab a bottle at random and throw it in a bag. We no care. Then you got to wait for the shipping for it to get to you. They send you the tracking code, and you're tracking it, and you're tracking it, and you're tracking it, and estimated delivery is the 18th, and the 18th's been and gone, and it's like estimated delivery, the 18th's been and gone. You call them up, get answering machines, and again, I have had some good things ordering from eBay. For example, my camera. I did a video of that on my YouTube channel. I've also ordered model kits from eBay. The first thing that comes to mind is a Walker Bulldog Tamiya kit that I got. I've had that kit before, so I knew what I was expecting, and various things like that. So I wasn't really that worried. But my personal option, if I got the opportunity to walk to, go to my local hobby store, if it was local, that is, and go to the shelf, get that kit I want, look at it, feel, and just, it's like a tactile. It's like when Picard and Data were touching the Phoenix in Star Trek, and Deanna Troi said, "Do you two boys need a moment?" That's what it is for me when it comes to certain kits. The 132 scale Tamiya Tiger 1, for example. That kit is one of those kits that when I first got it, it intimidated me. And I've built so many of them now that I don't even look at the instructions anymore. I can build it with my eyes closed, if you will. But that's the thing that comes to mind. When I look on eBay and I see it going for $40, $50, I'm like, I can get it cheaper from their main website. And again, I don't mind ordering the kits from the actual companies. For example, Tamiya, Dragon. I'm not afraid to go to their websites and order the product direct from them. I'm not paying markup. And again, the shipping, shipping's going to be a pain in the ass. Shipping's always a pain in the ass, no matter what you do. And now, things like tools, like rat tail file sets, glues. Glues you really can't get via the post. Most glues, because they're considered toxic chemicals, you can't get them through your post, DHL or otherwise, or UPS, whatever. You can't get those. So again, I have to go to my local hobby store. I have to get that said glue. But certain tools like I've also ordered a Tamiya handy drill, but I haven't got my shipping code on that yet. So I'm looking forward to getting that. And it's a kit within a kit. It's actually a kit of a drill you have to build to use on model kits, which is quite ironic. But again, guys, this is just my opinion, and what I like to do, or what I like to believe in, is when I'm ordering a product, whether it be online or over the counter, I tend to, when it's over the counter, I do tend to, again, look at the product, ask the store owner how long it's been on the shelf. If he says it's only been up there a week or so, I'm like, great. If he says it's been up there for a couple of months, you got to pay that in mind, which means the decals may be yellowing or curling, or the coupons or the mail-in rebates may not be valid anymore. Again, things of that nature. And then everyone's like, well, you're trying to compare apples to oranges. No, I'm not, because if you think about it, the cost of petrol compared to shipping, the cost of the product compared to ordering it, the security of paying cash or using a debit or credit card. Again, they're all things that you got to weigh up against yourself. Like I said, I have ordered products online. I have also gone to my local store and got those products. I am more comfortable going to my local store, again, for multiple reasons. One of them being I'm supporting my local business. Most products that you buy from your local business, about 60 to 70% of the cash revenue that they get goes back into the local business, into the local area that you live. So if you think about it, yeah, granted, paying $2 extra for the kit you could have got on eBay, I'm down with that. $2, $3, $4, I'm down with that. But you get these eBay stores that they don't even know what they've got half the time. They'll I know. Again, I'm mentioning Jack again, Scratching Jack. He was trying to find. So was Christina Pritchard. They were both trying to find a Smoothie Enterprise, and Christina found hers eventually in I believe it was Italy or Spain or France, and Jack hadn't found his. But the day Christina got hers, Jack found his and ordered it, and then all that fun stuff. And he already had one in a box, but it was the original. He wanted the re-release one. And again, picky, tomato, potato. And I asked them, what if you went to your local hobby store? And when I mean local hobby store, I don't mean Michael's. I don't mean one of these big box chains. I mean, like your local owned, mum and dad, or mum and pop, as you Americans call it, owned a store, and found that exact kit for, say, like $1.50 more. I would pay the $1.50. I would pay the extra because I know that money's going back into the local community. I'm helping to support people that may be in my parish. They may be in my church. I may see them at a high school football game. Things like that. And it's those sort of things. Like, I mean, a big box chain, they don't care. They order pallet loads of the same stuff. And again, it's like Walmart. Have you ever noticed how Walmart can lower $200 off of a digital TV and still make a profit? And you're like, well, how do they do that? Well, think about it. They jack the price down on one, but they jack the price up on something else. They look at what people constantly buy, for example, milk, bread, eggs, fabric softener. Again, fabric softener is the biggest joke in the universe. You can make your own homemade fabric softener for pennies, and it does just as good as store brand stuff. But that's not what this is about. And it's those big box chains that just turn me off of buying from hobby stores. Now, my local hobby stores, for example, PM Hobbycraft, I know that they're a good local hobby store. I would, if I lived in Canada, I believe they're in Canada, I would buy from them. But I'm not. But I know several people in Canada who are. And they probably do. I know Richard Cleveland does. And again, when it comes to, these are really open-ended questions. I mean, I personally, as I said, new versus old, I really don't care, simply because a kit is a kit. eBay versus local stores, again, if I'm purchasing it from a mum and pop, I don't mind. But if I'm comparing it to, say, an eBay seller to Michaels, and it turns out that the eBay seller, including shipping, is cheaper than Michaels, I will buy it from the eBay store. Again, simply because I don't have a Michaels closest to me. The nearest big box chain thing, if you will, that's near to me, is a Walmart, and it really doesn't. I mean, it does have a limited selection of model kits, but that's because my local Kmart decided to stop selling them. But again, it's one of those things that you do have to think about. You got to weigh up the pros and the cons, and I'm going to leave that open question to you guys. Again, my questions I'm going to ask you is: would you prefer building a classic original kit or a re-release? Would you prefer to buy your products online via eBay, Amazon, etc., or from your local stores? Again, think about it, guys. Food for thought. And that moves us on to the third question of this podcast, which is, who am I? Well, I've noticed that Richard Cleveland and a few others have done these who am I's, and so I'm going to do mine. I'm going to do it in this podcast, but I'll do it on video as well. And I'm going to start off with a hello. My name is Danny Liam Monahan. I am simply known as the Armor King on Google+. I got that nickname simply because of my past. My past being I was military. I first started off in the Royal Marines, and I eventually got bored with it. I know, how can you get bored with Royal Marines? And I eventually was transferred to the Royal Tank Corps, the First Regiment Royal Tank Corps. And in 1999, I was in Kosovo. I was in, I did a couple of UN peacekeeping missions. I was in Bosnia, Kosovo, a whole bunch of other places. The tanks that I primarily used were Challenger 2s, but I have used other previous tanks. And so, everyone's like, oh, you know how to drive a tank? Yes, I know how to drive a tank. And before then, when it got to model kit building, that's just a brief intro as to why I'm called the Armor King, but it starts off as to why I got around to building kits. What happened to me was I was 8, 9 years old, and it was a couple of days before my birthday, and my uncle Peter, God rest his soul, gave me my birthday present early, and it was a Boeing 747 with the space shuttle on the top model kit, and he also got me two World War II fighters. One was a Bf 109 Messerschmitt, and the other one was a Mark 6 Spitfire, I believe. And he and I built the kits. Now, mind you, I wasn't allowed to use the glue. He had to use the glue. I basically cut them off the sprues, put them on. He glued them on and put the models together. I didn't bother painting the model kit, the 747 or the space shuttle, because after I'd finished the kit, I left it on the dinner table, and my dad didn't notice it, and he threw his work bag down on the model kit and crushed it, and that was the end of that kit, and just threw it in the garbage. But me and my Uncle Peter did paint the Bf 109 and the Spitfire. And once they were finished, I showed them to my mum, and she was all proud of me, and my dad was too. And then my uncle, he nudged me with a grin, and I'm like, right, and he goes, follow me. So I followed him all the way up to the second story of my grandmother's house, where I was living with my family at the time. And he took some cotton balls, some cotton buds, some cotton wool, he poked them into certain crevices on the model kit, doused them in lighter fluid, set the models on fire, and threw them off the balcony. And when they crash landed, we ran downstairs, put the fires out, and we ended up using them as a diorama on my ceiling, and that's where my passion for aeroplanes came from. Where my passion from tanks came from was actually from cars. I had built a couple of American Revell monogram kits, because I remember I had a whole bunch of American comics, and I stupidly cut the coupons out of the comic books, mailed them off, and it took like 8 weeks, but I eventually got my free model kit from Revell, and I believe it was a 1940 Ford, and built that with my uncle, and he bought me a Bigfoot model kit, and so I did this whole great big diorama of the Bigfoot jumping and crushing the cars. And then I wanted more. I wanted something bigger. And so my uncle, for Christmas, bought me several tank model kits. And one was a Cromwell, the other one was a Challenger, the other one was a Centurion, and the Tamiya Tiger, as I was talking about earlier, the Tamiya Tiger that was very intimidating to me. And he took me up to the Imperial War Museum so I could see the tanks and touch them, and along with my grandmother, and listened to the historian talk about the tanks and their warfare and everything like that and whatnot, and got really intrigued with it. And by the time I was 11 or 12, I was already in shop class, woodwork, and then we call it design and realization. And I was hand carving World War I and World War II tanks out of wood. And I entered some of these hand-carved tanks into competitions, and I won a few, and I lost a few. And my father abruptly passed away when I was 10, 11. And I'd lost all passion to build anything, kits, wires, anything. Got into some trouble when I was 15, 16, and was asked to go into the Youth Corps. Youth Corps is kind of like the ROTC, if you will. Joined them. My PE teacher, Mr. Davis, I even remember his name, for my work experience, got me to go to the local Woolwich Arsenal base where they store tanks and jets and stuff. And for my work experience when I was 16, I had to help them repair and build tanks, and I loved it. I said to the superior officer at the time, I'm like, when I reach the age of 18, can I sign up? And he's like, yeah, of course you can, but You can sign up now even, but you've got to have permission from your parent or guardian. Now, little brief history about my father. My father was in the Royal Marines himself, and he was injured in active duty, which is what benched him. And yeah, so military-wise, if my dad was alive, I knew he would have signed off on it. But my mum, she was staunchly against it. My grandmother said, she said, "Will this make you happy?" And I'm like, "Yes, Nan. Yes, Nanny, it will make me extremely happy." So she signed off on it because she's my elder. She was my mum's elder. The army accepted my grandmother's signature over my mother's. And the day of my 18th birthday, I walked into the Woolwich Arsenal base, and I didn't leave until I was forced out because I blew both my knees in a bad parachute jump. They put me on desk duty, but desks just wasn't for me. I told them I have to drive, and unfortunately the Challenger 2's driving system requires you to use both your feet, and couldn't do that because my ACL's in my knees. So they benched me. They in essence force retired me. And so yeah, that's where I got the nickname Armor King, simply because after that I started reading and researching, and I was quite literally balls deep into, pardon the phrase, balls deep into tanks and armored vehicles and aircraft and anything, World War One tanks, but not planes. World War Two tanks, planes, boats, ships, I should say, all the way up into Korean War, Cold War era, is my fandom, if you will. And I've been doing that since I was since I was in the military at 18. I am now 30. Oh God, I'm going to age myself now. I'm now 36, and I have my own company, Top Hat Model and Props. I build model kits for, let's say, I've built model kits for the History Channel. I've built model kits for a game company called Wargaming. I've built model kits for, oh God, lots of people, family, friends. I'm currently building I'm in talks with a customer about building a Sliders TV, the Sliders remote control for the show where it let the guy open up portals and stuff. Customer wants me to build a fully working model of that for him. I reluctantly agreed because pretty much the price was just right for me. And so yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. I also do Let's Build videos. I'm currently doing one on the P-51 D5 Mustang from World War II. I also recently finished one up doing the F4U5 Corsair. I also build sci-fi models. I have a ongoing project of the Enterprise refit that has been assimilated by the Borg, thanks to Captain Archer from the TV show Enterprise. It's a whole storyline I read up about that model kit. I also do bursts, figurines, my own electronics. I'm a bit of a man that has all his thumbs in all the pies, if you will. But that's what got me into it, was my uncle. And my dad, and what keeps me in it isn't the fact that my modeling skills pay bills or anything. No, far from it. What keeps me going is you guys here at Amazing Plastic. If you're not listening to this via Amazing Plastic, shame on you. Go to Google Plus, and go to the communities and search for Amazing Plastic and join us, guys. It's free, and you'll have a blast here. And all I can say is pretty much I have had a wonderful time being here at Amazing Plastic. It's just mostly about me. If you really want to know and I'm in a Google Hangout, just ask. This is kind of an awkward thing for me because I'm talking to myself right now. I'm so used to talking to other people. But this is the very first, or pilot, if you will, podcast for you guys. And again, I would like to thank Amazing Plastic's sponsors. That would be Tenor Controls. They bring your models to life. Acryligos Vallejo, or Vallejo paints. The Fiber Optic Store. Luz Aztec Dummy Painting Masks, Awada Matea Airbrushes, PM Hobbycraft, and don't forget, guys, we do have our own Cafe Press store. Go to cafepress.com/amazingplastic. Pick yourself up a t-shirt, a cup, and help support us here. We're also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/ that's right. It's correction. It's youtube.com/Richard Cleveland, otherwise known as Amazing Plastic. And don't forget, guys, we do the Across the Pond Hangouts on the weekends, and we also do an after show. So we're very friendly, we're very open. It's also broadcast on YouTube at the same time. And me personally, if you want to know more information about me, you can find me on YouTube under youtube.com/Malavictus, or youtube.com/DeceptiveCobras, or even youtube.com/DannyMonahan. Yes, I have 3 YouTube channels. I'm now doing this podcast along with live streaming on twitch.tv, where I live stream various video games, and I even host, rebroadcast, I should say, some of the Across the Ponds. I'm also on Duckster, I'm on Reddit, I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/DeceptiveCobras. I'm literally out there on the web. All you got to do is type in Danny Monahan, you'll find me. I have several websites. I'm a very busy man, but don't forget, guys, come check us out here at Amazing Plastic. And as I always say, from my bench to yours, my name is Danny Armor King Monahan, wishing you the safest and happiest times. And don't forget, guys, rock on